They say getting old means slowing down, but I say it means seeing clearly what was hidden in plain sight. I'm Elspeth Warner, born in 1947 in a small town near Perth, Australia. Back in 2022, when I was 75, my cottage was swallowed by a flood, and I had no choice but to move in with my daughter and her husband. I felt like a burden, but then something happened that made me realize I was a target. Today, at 78, I'm finally sharing this because people need to know that evil sometimes lives under your own roof. If you're listening, drop your location below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. The rain hadn't stopped for days. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, watching water creep beneath my door like a thief. I lost everything in that flood: my books, my old vet equipment, the garden I'd kept since retirement. With nowhere else to go, I called my daughter Helena. She didn't hesitate. She told me, "Mom, pack your things. Eden and I will come get you." I believed I was going to a safe haven. Helena and Eden lived in a sleek townhouse in Melbourne. Everything in it looked like it belonged in a glossy magazine, cold, polished, a little too perfect. It wasn't home, but it was shelter. Their son, my grandson, Felix, was the only warm thing in that house. He'd run into my arms the moment I stepped in. "Grandma, you smell like the lemon cookies you used to make." I laughed. He always had a sharp tongue and a soft heart. The first week was quiet. Eden was unusually polite, constantly asking if I was taking my medications, if I was sleeping well, if I needed anything. At first, I was touched, then suspicious. He'd never cared before. He and Helena had always been a bit tight-lipped about money, and I'd caught enough whispers over the years to know their lifestyle wasn't always matching their income. But I kept my thoughts to myself. One morning, I walked past Eden's home office. The door was ajar. I peered in and saw a small brown bottle on his desk. My eyes are old, but not blind. I stepped in quietly. The label read digoxin. My heart skipped. I'd studied pharmacology in my early days as a vet. I knew exactly what that was. A strong medication for heart conditions, but in the wrong dosage, a killer. I didn't want to accuse anyone, so I tucked that information away and watched more closely. At dinner, Eden asked about my will. Helena laughed it off, but I saw the way her eyes flicked toward her husband. "You're still planning to leave the house to Felix someday, right?" she asked sweetly. I told them nothing had changed, but I felt the shift. Suddenly, they were bringing me cups of tea at odd hours, insisting I eat certain meals, offering to manage my prescriptions. I stopped drinking anything I hadn't poured myself. It was Felix who confirmed what I feared. One night, I found him pacing outside my room, his face pale. "Grandma," he whispered, trembling, "you have to get out. Dad said you won't be around long," and Mum didn't stop him. My heart cracked and hardened all at once. I pulled him close and kissed his forehead. "You heard them say that?" He nodded. They were talking in the kitchen. I was supposed to be asleep. That night, I lay awake, listening to every creak in the house. The walls suddenly felt like they were breathing close in. I called my old friend Neil Harding, the only person outside the family I truly trusted. Neil and I had gone through vet school together. He was now semi-retired, living in a quiet suburb not far from the city. "Neil," I said over the phone, "I think Helena and Eden are planning to kill me." There was a long pause. Then he answered, "Pack a bag. I'm coming." But I couldn't leave yet. I needed proof. I started keeping notes. Dates, times, odd behavior, comments from Helena. I noticed one night that Eden had changed my blood pressure medication. It looked different. I took it straight to Neil's clinic the next day. It was a generic version, but suspiciously high in dosage. Too high for someone my age. It was subtle. Too subtle for an untrained eye. But I had trained eyes. Felix became my silent little soldier. He helped me install a small recording app on his old tablet, which I slipped beneath the couch in the living room. I prayed we'd catch something, anything, but time was running out. Helena's birthday was coming up. They were planning a big dinner at the house, and I was expected to be the guest of honor. I had a feeling they'd want to make that night memorable, fatally memorable. On the evening of the party, the house was filled with laughter and clinking glasses. Helena wore a silky blue dress. Eden was unusually attentive. He handed me a glass of wine with a rehearsed smile. "To the strongest woman we know," he said. But before the rim touched my lips, Felix ran into the room and shouted, "Grandma, don't drink that." The room froze. "What's going on?" Helena snapped, her voice rising. Felix turned to the guests, friends, coworkers, neighbors and said, "They're trying to poison her. My parents want her inheritance." The room broke into murmurs and shocked gasps. Helena's face was drained of color. Eden tried to laugh it off. "He's just a kid," he said. "Too many detective shows." I set the glass down gently and stood up. "Enough." I looked at every guest in that room. If this is the last party I attend, let it be known that I did not go quietly. I turned and left, grabbing Felix's hand. As we walked down the hallway, I heard someone say, "Call the police." Neil met us 2 blocks away, where I'd asked him to wait in his car. "I got everything," I said, handing him the tablet and my handwritten notes. He looked at me with a mix of disbelief and admiration. "You were right," he said. "I just hope it's enough." We went straight to his house. For 2 weeks, we stayed hidden while gathering more evidence. Felix stayed with me, too scared to go back home. Neil contacted a lawyer friend who knew exactly what to do. The audio recordings of 2 clear conversations between Eden and Helena planning dosages and discussing my will were handed over to authorities. Photos of the digoxin bottle, my altered meds, and even Felix's statement were compiled into a report. I'd spent my whole life treating animals, but now I was in the middle of a human hunt. It took less than a month for the police to come knocking at Helena and Eden's door. I wasn't there to see it, but I imagine the look on their faces when they realized their carefully plotted secret had unraveled. Felix and I watched the news from Neil's lounge room. 2 names scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Attempted murder. Financial motive. Evidence under review. I don't think I exhaled for 10 full minutes. The arrest was quiet, no flashing lights, no drama. Just 2 detectives and a warrant. I later learned Helena tried to act confused, shocked that anyone would accuse her of such a thing. But Eden cracked first. He started shouting about stress and debts, how he never meant to hurt me, how it was all just talk. He claimed the digoxin was his father's and that I was overreacting. I wasn't there to defend myself. I didn't need to be. The evidence spoke louder than I ever could. When they were taken into custody, Felix and I were moved to a temporary protection house under an emergency order. It was a small, modest place on the edge of Hobart, owned by a nonprofit that helped vulnerable seniors. I remember looking out the window every morning at the gum trees swaying in the wind, thinking how close I had come to dying not from age, but from the hands of my own daughter. The trial began 3 months later. I wore navy blue every day and sat at the front of the courtroom, head high. Felix came on the last day of testimony, clutching a soft toy from his younger days. That child had aged before his time, his innocence peeled away by betrayal. Still, he stood with courage. Helena avoided my gaze through most of the trial. When she finally took the stand, she broke. Her voice trembled as she confessed to everything. She spoke about their mortgage troubles, her resentment toward my financial independence, and how she felt I always favored Felix over her. "I didn't want to kill her," she sobbed. "I just wanted to be free of her." That hurt more than the poison ever could have. Eden received a 15-year sentence for attempted murder and conspiracy to commit harm. Helena got 8 years as an accessory with a mandatory psychological rehabilitation program. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the sentence. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. After the sentencing, the court granted me temporary custody of Felix. I was the only relative deemed emotionally and physically safe. When the judge asked if I wanted him placed elsewhere for easier care, I looked at Felix and said, "He's coming with me. I don't care if I'm 78. He's my family." We moved back to Perth a few months later. By then, the flood-damaged house had been repaired through a local community effort. People I had treated pets for, people I had helped, all pitched in with funds, labor, and paint. When we pulled up to the freshly painted gate, Felix looked at me and whispered, "We made it, Grandma." And I whispered back, "Yes, love. We made it." I changed my will the very next week. Everything I owned was placed in a legal trust for Felix's future. Not just the house, but my savings, my books, even my late husband's medals. And I added something special, an education fund to cover his schooling and university. He deserved more than trauma. He deserved a fresh start. We lived quietly after that. I reopened a small part-time vet service in the back garden for neighbors, mostly free of charge. It kept me moving. Felix started therapy and eventually opened up more. We planted a new lemon tree together, and every spring, we baked cookies again. They never tasted exactly the same, but they felt like hope. Sometimes, people in town whispered about the old woman whose daughter tried to kill her. At the grocery store or the bank, I'd see sideways glances, pity in people's eyes. I didn't care. Let them talk. I survived. And I wasn't hiding. I still remember the night Felix crept into my bed after a bad dream. He didn't say anything, just laid there, his head on my shoulder. After a while, he murmured, "Grandma, are you scared to sleep?" I kissed his forehead. "Not anymore. Because you warned me." He nodded like he understood the weight of that moment, like he carried it every day. Maybe he did. Children see more than we give them credit for. Years passed. I got older, of course. My bones ached more in the winter, and my eyesight got fuzzier. But I also laughed more. And I never once took a single sunrise for granted. Felix grew into a fine young man, smart, kind, observant. He wants to become a psychologist now, to help people like him. People who've seen too much, too young. On my 80th birthday, he threw me a small surprise party. Just a few neighbors and Neil, who still visited every Sunday. As I blew out the candles, Felix wrapped an arm around me and said, "I don't need a trust or a house or money. You gave me everything when you believed me." I told him, "You saved me first." It still hurts, you know. What Helena did. Some nights, I wake up remembering her voice as a little girl, calling me Mummy and crawling into bed with me. I raised her with love, with my whole heart. But something in her cracked. I've accepted that I may never understand it. Some people love you only when they need you. Some people love you conditionally. But Felix? He taught me what unconditional love looks like in real time. I tell this story not because I want sympathy, but because someone else might be sitting in their daughter's guest room, wondering why the tea tastes strange or why their medication smells different. I want you to trust that gut feeling. I want you to listen if someone, especially a child, whispers, "Something isn't right." It's not always strangers who bring harm. Sometimes, it's the people who know you best. But there's always a way out. There's always someone who will believe you. And there's always healing on the other side of truth. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me, what would you have done in my shoes? Moral lesson: even in betrayal's darkest shadow, truth can become the light that saves us. Listen to your instincts, they might just save your life.